Good evening, folks. It's Lynn Johnson, coming to you conveniently located in the middle of the continent, close to everybody from sunny southeast Saskatchewan. Excuse me, it is September 29th, about 6:15, 6:20 in the evening on the PM and Central Non-Daylight Savings Time, and it was a bright, beautiful day today, sunny, quite warm for this time of year, but we'll take it. I've been away for a while, and not away for a while in the sense that I was being unappreciated, but no, I was out fighting the forces of evil, of course, and then as far as it took so long to get back to you folks, I was just having a hard time to find some dirty old phone booth to get changed back into my civvies, and having done going out and getting those badasses and stuff, so, but here we go. What I'm going to be doing is a series of things. This is Gom'S Gospel number 13. It's just an appraisal of what's coming. The next, we'll call this one, though, the hopes of good things to come. And with the intentions of, under promise, over deliver. But, so, I'm going to do the next one. The next video, Gom'S Gospel, the grumpy old man or whatever, grumpy old Middle-earth, wow. White wizard, archangel, supreme blither blather, imperial architect, wizard of this part of the universe for working under the big guy, I guess. Yeah. So, but here we go, and in heaven's interest, of course. I mean, I'm known as the heaven-sent butterfly, or the divine masculine, mystical, feministical, holy grail male, and the missing links, and LYNX. I'm kind of an observant old cat, and I was born under Leo, so I can't help it. But I've been in sales and marketing things over the many years, and up until 3 or 4 years ago, when COVID came up, and I started making some observations about some things going that weren't adding up, that were inconclusive, but definitely conclusive, and they're inconclusive, and at the point it became conclusive, there were some people that were quite conclusive about wanting to avoid the issue that it was. And so I got off into a little bit of a pursuit, not a rabbit hole, but a distraction to basically investigate this aberration that was going on, in my opinion, and the opinion of many others, about what's going on in the world these days. But at that time, I've been in environmental sciences and marketing and that and research for many years. My university career, or my military career as an English major, was short-lived. After a couple of years of pre-law. I decided that wasn't my gig, went off into real estate and numerous other things, because I had always been known as an inquisitive person, and a little smarter than the average bear apparently in school. I just kind of, well, I did well in school until I decided I was going to be a professional hockey player, and I just kind of flew under the radar. And my high school principal, he was a disciplinary officer in Second World War in Singapore for the British Army. Damn fine man, Colonel Ken Wood. One time he pulled me aside and he says, Lynn, he said, you're a good student, you're well behaved in this school. He says, you're one of the better examples of the kind of people we'd like to have coming through this door. But he says, if you'd like to be on a little bit better public relations with the teachers, he says, why don't you just up your grades just a little bit instead of just not doing that? He said, because those people know that when you're getting your grades handed back to you, you've been grading them. They're not grading you. Fair? And kind of nudge. He was a good guy. So I kind of became tolerable. I got enough to get into university and took my business and contract law. And then I got out and became a real estate agent at the tender age of about 21 in Regina. And with a very respectable firm, a conservatively bent people as far as their politics, as far as their lifestyle and that, but nonetheless very liberal in the regard that in a conservative bent, whatever a person's into, or even if they're into a diverse thing, well, that's fine, away you go. But Very good crowd that I was with. I feel very fortunate for those years. And one of the best bosses that I'd ever had, I might remark. Her name was Mrs. Vanetta Evans, and she had a family of some other very successful people, of which I had the good fortune of practicing real estate and going to university and sharing some good times with over the years. But here's the thing, folks. I got into marketing, and I mean, I really got into it because I was sitting in an open house, and there was a British war bride that had come back, and it was for a disbursement of her husband's estate and some things in Canada because of tax structures and money shifts because he'd stayed there after the war. But she said the big gig, not that that was the term she used as the proper old British lady when I was sitting around suit and tie, and the husband was teaching me the finer point of British billiards and cumanship. But she said all the kids are getting into marketing in Britain. It's not just a matter of putting a sale price on the item and sitting back and saying, how may I help you? She said, analysis, she said, anybody that's getting out into the world these days, as far as a young kid, I would recommend getting into. And she said, here's why. It doesn't matter if you're a plumber or a salesman or a doctor or an Indian chief. She said, it doesn't matter what you are. You've got to analyze for your own best interest what the market is, how it suits you, how you can basically apply your trade or your worth to the person to basically hold yourself in the game. Made perfectly good sense to me. I became a marketing junkie. And because, of course, of events, I spent numerous years in sales and marketing on an independent basis because I had the misfortune of when I had moved on to a large corporate industrial international oil field and scientific diverse, industrially diverse corporation, the largest in the world, largest engineering company. I took to that like a fish to water. I'm a polymath, and I have a broad diversity of comprehensible capabilities as far as my intellect. It runs up there as far as comprehensive problem solving, analytics, and all that. It's extremely high as far as some categories. Granted, other things like as far as functioning is in some regards, I'm as thick as a brick. Just it doesn't add up to a decent earthquake on a seismic scale. Some aspects, but we all do our best. But here's the thing. As far as comprehensive analysis, I got into that. So when I first got out of school, I got the stockbroker's manual from a buddy of mine and went through that. And then I researched that. Then I thought about banking, and well, no, that's staying inside because you see, the thing is, folks, I never liked being cooped up inside. It was kind of related to ionics and atmosphere and human tendencies and 20th century disease, whatever the case is. I'm ion sensitive. After a fresh air, after a lightning storm, I feel good. But as far as the physiologies of that, I ended up with the equivalent of somewhat of a technical engineering certificate proficiency in ionization, symbiotics, biometeorology, and air treatment conditions in buildings and assessment, blather, 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 blather. As well as that, when I was with Halliburton, I had another engineering design from an aspect of content, technical certificate in hydraulics and hydrostatics, and pressure differentials. And so it all came in handy as far as the all in all of it's one thing or the other, or the comparative as far as physics. And so one or the other, and engineering versus engineering, whether it's in the actual building of a house or a car engine or troubleshooting or analyzing property or market or potentials, I became pretty darn good at it. When I was a real estate agent, I learned the overall views of the general aspects and considerations, fixed cost analysis, flows, potentials, leading indicators, blather, 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 blather. So, always being analytical, here we are, drum roll please. I'm going to be doing a series of sales and education things, starting from the very first. It's going to be a series of videos. And what it'll be is it'll be probably 10 or 15 minute shorts, or basically depending on the topic, so it's segmented properly and appropriately and easy to get to what you need to know. It'll be a sequential build, but the first one might be 10, 15 minutes. Maybe the one will be 30, 35, whatever. But it's going to be on, right from start to thing, about people these days on the merit that everybody's got some worth, everybody needs to represent. The world is changing. A person's got to have some viability in this brave new world, unfortunately. But because let's face it, the years of the 25 years at the automobile manufacturer's factory, and your gold watch and your 25 years and your RRSPs and you know, and away you go and go and enjoy and now it's not a case of that, because we've got a paradigm now where the inflation, everything, a lot of people's expectations are just being cut short, or to put it in a realistic conjecture, being sabotaged or stolen, but for what it's worth. But so I'm going to be giving in the first one like the motivational aspects about how to determine, because there's a lot of people, oh well, geez, no, I wouldn't want to sell, or I couldn't sell, or I couldn't do this or that, and it's basically the age-old thing of, it's not a case you couldn't or you wouldn't, not couldn't, it's a case that you won't, because it's just like a lot of people, if you don't know how and you don't feel comfortable with not knowing how, it's just something you're not going to touch. So in my case, I am an INFJ personality type. We're the 1% of the group as far as we have a sixth sense. We have a highly, it's a truth be known biologically, we have a highly developed and very well constructed and operating pineal gland, and that's your antenna. Truth be known, folks, all your thought processes, all your memory, all your reasoning, all your data and stuff, and cross-referencing is not done inside your brain. It is done in the flux dynamics that is around your system, your body, your aura. All these things substantiated by Kirlian photography and EMI and a bunch of stuff that I've been into since the early 90s or late 80s, and with Kirlian when I got into new evolutionary sciences and things. So as far as theoretical physics and that, top to bottom, I've got a very good grasp on it. So here's the thing, folks. We're just going to stick to on the sales and marketing. At first, it's going to be the motivation, putting yourself in the right mindset to say, yes, I can. Because anybody can, if they're shown how, or if they have the ability to learn how to reverse engineer, analyze the situation to teach themselves. And not to forget, the first time is often the hardest, but practice makes for improvement. You know, if anybody's ever played golf, you know that there's no such thing as achieving perfection in that game. You know, so, you know, for couples that one is a little unforgiving of the other, well, take them out and give them a round of golf, and then maybe it would be a humbling experience. It's a good game. It's a humbling game. It keeps things in perspective. And in your golf bag, if you're pouting, you had a bad round. But here we go. So there's going to be that, then different criteria: how to analyze markets, how to pick, how to price, how to say, for example, if you have a product, and that's the other thing, folks. If you've got a product that you need brought to bear, or you need somebody to phone up an executive or a big banking executive, and put the nuts and bolts out and that, and I'm very successful on those things. I can give references in the background that I have in the background numerous hundred trillions of dollars of economy that are being conjectured upon with the think tank of which I am part of. Because I've been into environmental research and prior things for many decades. Ever since I was a farm boy and growing up and trying to make the pumpkins grow bigger in the fall. So, you know, just for the sake of having a big jack-o'-lantern in the window and all those important things as far as swifter, higher, stronger, and having the biggest one. So, at any rate, that will be about it, folks. So for the time being, we're at the 15-minute mark. So next one is going to be Gom'S Gospels, and it's going to be for the girls, and it's going to be for the guys, because it's going to basically be a sort out for the guys to have a real perspective at how I have a perspective with the pretty girls, and how I've always managed to be able to get along with pretty girls. But I'll tell you, it's been pretty controversial the last 4 or 5 years, because you see, folks, well, 4 or 5 years ago, I started sending out some group emails to very large and influential politicians and corporate things about, excuse me, what's up? Because I've been out here in this big thing, keeping an eye on and playing big games as far as in consultation and awareness and practical experience and employment, and running alongside in chit-chatting and conference rooms on market development, a whole bunch of things in industries for a whole long time. And it was a case of, so what's up? Excuse me, but I'm not a corn cob. Something's up here. And it got going into things. But during that course of time, I also found out that years ago, I came up with hydraulics and hydrostatics, circular things. I found a different geometric calculation and function approach to find an exact decimal point to the end, last number exact of a calculation of pi. And they say, well, how could you do that? Well, it's like this. Anybody knows the Pythagorean approach of basically taking into areas of triangles smaller and smaller, but that little curvature you can, that's why it never ends. It's always a repeating progression and progressively smaller, but it never quits. Well, in mine, it's as simple as this. You figure out the area around you figure out the area of the circle of one circle, and then you draw a bigger circle around the bigger one, and then you figure out and subtract the difference of the area of the bigger circle down to the smaller circle, and a few other little tricky who's, and realm the situation and calculate for the abstracts, and proof bang one and subtract from the one from the other as far as the function. And you run the two systems together, and it comes out as divine proportion and a balance of light and dark energy and a whole bunch of other things at that time, which I didn't realize, but it got stolen and hijacked off my fax machine back about 2006 by a conservative government agency. Now, when Harper was in, and as well as that, it was also being hijacked by some chick down in San Diego. And they weren't that sophisticated back then, but I did a reverse number lookup on both numbers to find out. And the one in San Diego was the CIA. But, you know, it's face tracers, red flags, and that. The common that I'm on here that just keeps coming up as far as these algorithms and stuff. Because it happened again. Folks, there's a thing called a Transact debit card out there that, uncannily, I have a copyright that's just about identical. The only, as far as the format and the things, well, let's put it this way. I think, was it Hey Jude had about, or some rock music had about 3 bars that were similar. There was a multi-$100,000 law settlement. Excuse me, with the exception of a few bars, I wrote Hey Jude. But as far as the format of this financial mechanic for the Transact, all I was expecting and lobbying as far as my virtual transfer, which was stolen out of wherever by, well, who's the common denominators as far as things? Well, you got social media that would be in through the middle of it. And then, of course, you got the agencies and that, and the red flags and key things and yahs. So, and Microsoft is the guy all through the Western world as far as through corporate and software. And so naturally, is it Bill? Who knows? But it could somebody unscrupulous and nefarious within his group, and he's just sitting around and being a philanthropist, and shit's happening. If the cat's away, the mice will play. Draw no calls on that. And then you've got Mr. Electric Car Guy, who, by our environmental group and our solutions, which are many times more impactful and actually work as far as addressing the global environment and waste and temperature problems, well, many times larger and many more time dynamic, and the future of the planet could be far different, and in a recovery in that, and not the catastrophe as far as this mismanagement that caused this reaction to mismanagement, as opposed to a proaction to actually correct, as opposed to do damage control, and a bunch of things as a pretense or an illusion or whatever it is. But in my opinion, we have something far better, and they realize it too. So last 3 or 4 years, I've been taking it on the chin, and I've been looked upon as a dirty dog because guess what? Down through the algorithms and that and social media, all of a sudden at my local level where I'm saying nothing, all of a sudden I'm being treated like a dirty dog. I show up in small towns and things, and where I've been dropping in for years, and all of a sudden I'm being on the outs and well, being asked to leave town and this and that, and all of a sudden I'm not cash flowing and what's going on. But we figured it out, folks, over the time that some of these big guys, when they started holding to account about who actually took it, and there was the train of things, the advance as far as where the yank was, and on that, and that intellectual property of the exact calculations applying all the other referentials. Well, it's kind of like Google Universe. It's kind of the basic mathematical function of reality itself. It's kind of like having not the patent on the alphabet, but the patent on the basically basic physics, the physics calculation of reality itself. However, somebody else. But the thing about it is, when you have an exact, and you never had it before, as far as a circular calculation, all of a sudden you can make exact calculations, which were necessity for the CERN super collider, which were necessity for making computers run faster, cooler, more efficiently, smaller, and more powerful. But thing about it is, folks, the world made millions and billions and trillions of new viability and capabilities off of my intellectual properties. Of that one 10 many years ago. I was wanting fair compensation on a discreet plight request at first. I just kept getting doors slammed in my face to the point that here I am 4 years later living out of a car and being treated like a dirty dog, and kept it running to such a distraction that I got cleaned out of everything. They just had to prove their point that they were going to make me look like an incompetent, no matter how many people bloody well knew otherwise. So, and who those nondescripts really are, well, you can narrow it down. The authorities are at this point. But in the meantime, I'm just out here. And so as far as things, and I will acknowledge this, as far as the pretty girls in celebrity land and that, as far as the compliments, well, there has been notice of some level of support. And as far as one definite pretty girl, as far as things that is a very nice girl, and being very helpful to the situation, and that much appreciated. And so as far as all the other girls of the mystique and what I'm seeing out there on social media, because what I'm doing there, folks, is I'm deking social media. And that's for these scam artists, because there's so many people like out on Instagram. All of a sudden you put a compliment about one gal, and all of a sudden there's 20 Facebook things, and it's all the same gal, and it's this and that, and you kind of... So I figure, well, I'm wired up for this. I'm an INFJ. I kind of have a feel for things, people, and as far as the human psychology, but act, react, stimulus, response, cause and effect, behaviorally, intuitively, in that, in my opinion. I'm not usually tricked. I mean, sometimes I'll just play, oh yeah, fine, I'll let them get away with it, because at that point you just let a person go out and have enough rope until they hang themselves, and then you get your rope back, and then they're off, not hung, but basically dealt with, and you get some satisfaction about getting those badasses. So for the last several months, I've been doing this out on social media, and well, again, I'm picking up on phishing scams and things, and unfortunately those things that lead into scams and stuff, and AI and generated and phone sex and all these addictive things that guys and girls are getting distracted into. It's unfortunately ending up with girls getting an abusive lifestyle put upon them, as far as one thing and another, and dead in back alleys, or assaulted, or these provocative things that they're not really enjoying, but it's a living, they call it. But it's basically financing, ending up offshore and terrorist finance projects that basically come reinvested, come back in to exacerbate and further the takeover of the intrusion and the detriments and the debilitation of the sociological decency of the North American society, in my opinion. And so I do that little thing on my own, and because of my over the last 3 or 4 years, when I was watching these guys avoid and slam the doors while I was trying to track down while they were shutting down my 4 or 5 email apps and on, trying to avoid detection. But as I kept handing off in collective group things to the FBI, police agencies, and that, we all got a whole bunch smarter about all this stuff. So I know everything, not everything, but essentially, well, you pick up on a new one, but the sophistications, it's pretty easy in the either order. As soon as you see it coming, you know, oh, well, this is coming, and you know exactly that. Well, you don't know what's going to happen to it, or you want to then see you can pick them off and reverse engineer up through. But bagged a couple more today. Oh, a pretty girl that supposedly, but you can tell by the psychology in that you're actually dealing with a guy on the text. But I must say, but the thing about it is, as far as the intrigue, everybody seems to figure that me as the grumpy old archangel, that I'm out and using my special talents, and I'm often having pretty girls have their way with me in some regards and boffing them all over the planet and the universe. Well, not really, but as far as the occult and some of the reality folks and things, I'm a celibate heterosexual Christian male. I'm formal and well behaved. I believe in the old school as far as love has nothing to do with physicality. Love has to do with spirituality and falling in love and not taking advantage of another person physically or whatever, but taking advantage of the opportunity to get to know the person spiritually, so that the point that the binding is all tied up, and it's yes, I definitely do, and when are we gonna? Well, if you're gonna, and well, that's fine, but if the novelty wears off, you got other things, or when the kids or other obligations, and that's the last thing in your mind because you're too tired and you just want to sit around on the porch and eat oatmeal cookies and enjoy each other's company. Well, that's all there, so it's not contingent upon whether we're feeling validated or not, or how stupid some guy, oh, she doesn't love me anymore because she won't let me use her as a piece of exercise equipment. Some guys, they don't think straight, but here we go. So like I say, folks, I'm going to just leave it at that I'm very straight. But as far as this tenors flea stud thing, well, I can sing Tennessee Ernie for it. I could do it since I was 15. My uncle was the Ottawa Symphonic Choral Director for years, lifetime honorary member, and Chief Examiner, Department of Immigration, Ottawa, through the Pearson and Trudeau and Joe Clark and back into in a bit of Mulrooney years, and had a lot given to him by Charlotte Whitten, first Lady Mayor of Ottawa, up in the Gatineaus, and he was a man about town, jazz pianist, and as well as that, a big band arranger for a period of time. But he worked ops in the radar, and a good guy. But at any rate, so I grew up, in the know, and the discreet, and the diplomats, and the high-ranking this and the what-buts, and embassies and ambassadors, and I grew up in a fairly well-educated background as far as and on my level. It was a small town, a small struggling farm in rural Saskatchewan, nonetheless pretty civilized, and good friends of the family, the local newspaper editor and his brother, and they were a couple of bachelors, and at any rate, my brother and I, we grew up around and moved along and went off and got a good start in life. And I was rolling along pretty darn good 4 years ago. I had marketing contracts, and I'd had in my background as far as a reference list, the most successful marketing executive in the world on the books. Had around 400,000 people under him when he retired, but he said I was as good as anybody, and as collective as but he taught me how to bring a market thing, how to conjecture, how to criteria, how to bring something to market. So as far as that, folks, as far as my series of lessons, it's just going to be a brief overview. But if you've got a sales team, or if you need an autoresponder drip process or whatever, I worked for the most successful, well-credentialed website marketing agent in Canada. Not as far as size and that, but in terms of criteria, If the official authorities or anybody or television, the radio wants an interview, he's the go-to guy. Again, highly intelligent. He grew up as a stockbroker until the $2 trade said he better get on the phone and do something else. But I worked with him, but until the paradigm changed with all these ghost calls, I basically went on with him, and within 2 or 3 weeks, I was turning numbers 2 and 3 times higher than the other group average, to the point that he called me up and insisted that I have a talk with them. So, but that's the thing about it, folks. I never became really successful or retired of that in the 25-year gold watch, because I never stuck with the company. In a sense, because I had chronic fatigue syndrome. That's the reason I left my big job out in Alberta with the largest corporation in the world. I couldn't keep up the rigors of the job after a hospitalization and just about going over the edge. And I became subclinical and basically had, before it was criteria as a disorder, chronic fatigue syndrome. So I suffered flu-like symptoms without a fever for 12, 14 years. So as health would allow, I'd get up off the couch and I'd go out and I'd talk a deal. I'd get the brochures, and they'd tell me what my commission was. Maybe they'd provide me some leads, or I'd just go knocking doors or swapping and trading. And supported all my years, and a few days or a few hours a week. And I moderated a very successful product as far as things that we went. From a few brochures and a hand of the bottle and a basic website in the back office in January on a $2 bottle that was about $40 wholesale, or a 2-ounce bottle for an engine treatment. And we had close to $400,000 worth of sales wholesale by the end of October, and 700-800 dealers in it. And I just basically signed on another $25,000. That was 2007, the big correction, poof, bang. And the American way, everybody got greedy and grasping, and it was such a lucrative contract. Some other guys decided they wanted to misrepresent the context of what was going on. They had ended up in a lawsuit. They lied their teeth out. They were looking for our operation and our website, but they shut us down, but they couldn't have our website because it wasn't in the fine print. So, but that was a several $1 million income to me that was just all of a sudden gone. But nonetheless, but just to give you an example, like you take, for example, Dragon's Den or the Shark's Tank and that. Well, folks, I've been dealing with people in the background that are doing that all the time, have been there, but they're just not on television sensationalizing. And, for the sake of an audience. But the truth of the matter is, I deal with people that are doing business deals out there that if you took Shark's Tank and the Dragon's Den and you put them all together, they're still small pond guppies. Because some of these guys that I'm working with, they're dropping and throwing a couple of $100 million or, and in the background, I've got trade commissioners and stuff in the background where in their Rolodex, they've got guys that, you got Elon Musk. If he netted out, maybe he's worth a few $100 billion or something. This guy's in the background as far as the Rolodex, as far as people that I'm in the repertoire and the pipeline of information that we're trying to get our program off to save the planet. But my Lord, they're not dealing in billions. They're dealing in trillions. So Elon Musk is the richest single man on the planet, privately. But that's a technicality. He's a nothing burger, as Kevin O'Money would say, and I'm a nothing burger. But the thing is, folks, we're all nothing burgers, but the thing is, we all got to eat. And as far as that goes, if you want to give me a call, I can provide drip programs. I can optimize websites because I study things in known paradigms that actually work. And the proof of the centuries or years of repetitive on the human psychology that it's ethical, that people can basically see that it's trusting and it's going to work on the basis of a psychology that it's not going to blow up and it's reliable and bang for your buck. Slow but sure wins the race. And a whole bunch of other things that as I say, I was doing very well and it has served me well up until 4 years ago, because at that point I had basically designed and had the credibility of coming up with scientific calculations, concepts, and and banking vehicles and that. And I've got another banking vehicle as far as another quasi-crypto fiat thing that you can run off of that other Transact debit and really rock and roll. It'd be really lucrative and solves a whole bunch of more things as far as freedom, as far as taxation, as far as control and that. And everybody having everybody being dealt with fairly and everything's cool, as opposed to the way these people are got tunnel vision or misdirected and haven't got, in my opinion, don't see things clearly. But when you're sitting back from the crowd and you're looking at it independently all these years, you do see things clearly. And then you put it out to the crowd, and all of a sudden the people that are in the midst of it trying to act and react, and oh my God, because they're messing up large and they don't want the truth to get out, and that is the truth. And then I end up sleeping in my car and that, because I helped architect a several $100 trillion thing that's on self-returning and self-sustaining and burning garbage and regen that would improve farmlands and enhance carbon content and solve the things, and then radio wave ionizing biometeorological to balance out the climate and that, and generalize and cite local and put in rainfall without having to dust and aluminizing the clouds with all these chemicals that are just poisoning and ruining us on paradigms that are, oh well, let's give this a try. Oh well, if it doesn't work, oh well, so there'll be some fallout. Yeah, we'll try something else. No. Work with what you know. Work with what's known in Mother Nature that's worked over the centuries and improve upon it or optimize. Don't come up with something artificial to say it's going to be better. Be loaned to the tits and that, and mortgage that you got to have market share to pay it off, and the bankers let the executives go out and buy up the politicians to facilitate some other nightmare happens. Speaking of nightmare, it's getting dark out and it's not getting chilly, but in the meantime, so we'll see if Gom'S gone. Maybe I'll just stay up all night and turn on the light in my palatial SUV, and we'll put together some sales things together night, and then I'll run down to the local bank, hop on their Wi-Fi, and we'll have something to talk about for a whole bunch of time. And in the meantime, all you pretty girls and the con artists, by all means, keep those cards and letters and nice attention and actual genuine help coming from the pretty girls and coming in. In the meantime, I'm signing off and going out to out of this nice little alcove here in the park, and go have a coffee, and we'll see you soon. And so tomorrow, tomorrow it's going to be for the girls and guys, and in the meantime, you have a good day and good night. Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night.